My name is Declan. I'm 32 years old, and for the better part of a year, I could not cross my own kitchen without a steel rail bolted to the wall and a stranger's hand hovering an inch from my elbow. And the shame of that lived deeper in me than any break the doctors ever set. I want to tell you how I got that low, and then I want to tell you how a woman I did not want in my house refused to let me vanish inside it. And I want to tell you about the day her brother stood in my gravel driveway and said one plain sentence that stopped my heart in my chest, though I am getting ahead of myself. I always do when it comes to her. Before the fall, I was a high climber, not a weekend man with a rented harness and a how-to video. I strapped steel spurs to my boots before the sun was up, and I went 150 feet into a Douglas fir with a saw on my hip, and I topped it and limbed it and brought it down in pieces small enough that they would not take the barn out. On the Olympic Peninsula, where the timber still runs to old growth in the back draws and the fog sits in the valleys until noon, a man who can climb is worth something, and I was good at it. I do not say that to brag. I say it because it was the one thing about myself I was ever sure of. Up there in the wind, with the whole green world tilting slow beneath me and the ground so far down it stopped feeling like ground, I was never once afraid. That was who I was. The buy-in kid who was not afraid of the high work. I climbed for an outfit called Kestrel Ridge Timber. 14 years, since I was a green 18-year-old who could barely tie a bowline. I gave that company my back and my knees and every daylight hour it asked for, and I believed, the way you believe things when you are young and strong, that giving all of yourself to hard work was the same as being safe. The day it happened, we were dropping a run of hazard firs above a county road, and the crew was pushing to beat a storm that was already darkening the ridge. I clipped into a top I had climbed 100 times. What I did not know, because a man is only as safe as the gear a company hands him, was that my flip line, my steel cord lanyard, the one thing between me and the air, had a frayed core under the sheath. It should have been pulled from service months before, and it never was, the way small things get missed on a crew that is always a man short and always racing a storm. So when I leaned back into the line to make my cut, the line let go. I fell 40 feet through the limbs of a tree I loved, and the ground I had stopped believing in came up and took my left leg like it was a green branch. I will spare you the sounds. There were 7 hours of surgery, and a rod down the center of my shin, and screws I can still feel when the weather turns. The doctors used the word shattered, and I heard it the way you hear a word about someone else. Comminuted fracture. Nerve damage they would not promise to fix. And somewhere in the fog of the first days, a resident said the sentence that I carried home like a stone in my chest. He said it kindly. He said I would likely walk again, but that I would never climb again, not high work, not the way I had. He said it and moved on to his next room. And I lay there and felt the only sure thing about myself get quietly canceled. So they sent me home to a cabin at the end of a gravel road, a house I had built the good parts of with my own 2 hands, and for a long time I did nothing in it but shrink. Here is the part I am not proud of. I was a bad patient and a worse man to be around. I let the dishes stack. I slept in the recliner, because the stairs were a mountain. My buddy Silas, who ran the crew with me and had been the one to cut me loose from the tree and hold my hand the whole ride down the mountain, came by most days, and I made him regret it. I snapped at him. I told him I did not need his casseroles or his pity. He took it, the big quiet way he took everything, and he kept coming, and I hated that too, because every time I saw his hands I remembered they were whole and mine were the hands of a man who could not open a jar. And in the closet by the door, on the top shelf where I did not have to see it, was a scarred green tin box, and in the box were my spurs. My climbing spurs. The gaffs I had sharpened 1,000 times, the leather shanks worn to the exact shape of my own legs. For 14 years, those spurs were the first thing I touched every morning, and the last thing I cleaned every night. Now I could not so much as look at the box. I made Silas move it to the top shelf the first week I was home, and I told myself it was because I needed the space. That was a lie. I could not stand the sight of them, because they were the shape of the man I used to be, and that man was dead in the mud under a county road, and I did not have it in me to bury him. That was the house Marisol walked into that October, and I did everything I could to make her leave. I did not want a live-in physical therapist. I want to be honest about that. The crew had done it. Silas and the boys had passed a hat, and then the union local had matched it, and between them they had scraped together enough to hire a rehab specialist to live in my spare room for 3 months and get me back on my feet, because the doctors said home therapy twice a week was not going to be enough for a break like mine. It was the kindest thing anyone had ever done for me, and I received it like an insult. Charity. That was the word going around in my head. They had all looked at me and decided I could not be trusted to save my own life, and the worst part was they were right. She came up the gravel in a mud-splattered little truck with a canoe rack and no canoe, and she got out in work boots and a fleece with her sleeves already pushed up, like she had come to move a woodpile. She was maybe 30, dark hair pulled back hard, and she had a way of looking at a place and a person that took inventory without any apology in it. She stuck out her hand and said her name was Marisol, and that she was going to be living in my back room for a while, and that she had read my chart and my surgeon's notes twice on the ferry over, and that we were going to get along fine as long as I understood one thing. I said, "What thing?" She said, "I am not here to feel sorry for you. There's a whole house doing that already. I am here to make you work." I told her more or less that she could turn her little truck around and drive it back onto the ferry, because I had not agreed to any of this and I did not need a babysitter. I was cruel about it. I will not dress it up. And Marisol stood in my doorway with the rain coming down behind her and did not so much as blink. She said she had already been paid by people who loved me more than I currently loved myself, and that she did not take money to lose, and that I could hate her all I wanted starting tomorrow at 6 in the morning. Then she carried her own bags past me into the back room, and that was that. That was the woman. And her brother's one sentence was still months away, and I had no idea it was coming, or how badly I would need it to be true. The first weeks were a war, and I lost every battle in it. Marisol had me up at 6, whether I had slept or not. She would not let me use the recliner as a bed. She hauled a proper adjustable frame into the front room so I did not have to fight the stairs, and she taught me to transfer in and out of it with a board, and she stood there with her arms crossed while I cursed and sweated and refused her hand, and she let me refuse it, right up until the moment I was actually about to go down, and then her hand was there, sure and unhurried, like she had known the exact second I would need it. She never made me thank her for it. That was the first thing that got under my guard. She let me keep my pride in the small ways so she could take it apart in the big ones. She had rules, and she said them out loud instead of writing them down, which I came to understand was on purpose, because she wanted me looking at her face when she set the terms. We work every day. You eat real food. You do the count of reps I give you, not the count your pain gives you. And when you tell me you cannot, you say the whole true sentence, which is, I have decided not to try, because that is what cannot means to me. She was merciless about that last one. The first time I threw down a resistance band and said I cannot, she just looked at me and waited, and would not go on, and would not fill the silence, until I heard the ugly true version of it in my own head and got so angry at her for making me hear it that I picked the band back up out of pure spite. She smiled then, the first real smile I had gotten out of her, and she said, "Spite is fuel too. I will take it." I learned slowly that Marisol was not cruel. She was something rarer, which was unsentimental about the exact thing I most wanted people to be sentimental about. Everyone else in my life had started treating me like something fragile, like a cracked thing to be handled and set gently on a shelf. Marisol treated me like a man with a job to do. When I made progress, she did not throw a parade. She wrote a number in a notebook and set me a harder number for the next day. And when I did not make progress, she did not comfort me. She adjusted the plan and got me back to work. Around her, I was not a tragedy. I was a project with a deadline, and after months of being a tragedy, being a project felt like being handed back a piece of my own life. She had an old dog named Roscoe, a gray-faced heeler mix she had brought with her, and Roscoe took to lying across my feet during the floor exercises, a warm, heavy weight that I pretended to be annoyed by and was not. And in the evenings, when the work was done and my leg was packed in ice and the light was going purple over the ridge, Marisol would cook and she would talk, and slowly, without either of us deciding to, we became something other than a therapist and the man she had been paid to fix. I learned where the mercilessness came from. She told me one night, stirring a pot, not looking at me, the way people tell the true things. Her father had been a millwright at a plant down the coast in a mill town called Cranmore, and he had lost 3 fingers and most of his right arm's use in a machine that should have been guarded and was not. And her father, she said, had been a big, strong, proud man, exactly like the man currently feeling sorry for himself in her care. And after the accident, he had sat down in a chair, and he had never really gotten up again. Not because his body could not. Because his spirit quit before his body did. He drank, he faded. He decided he was finished, and being finished, she said, was a thing you could choose while you were still very much alive. And it was the saddest thing she had ever watched. She was 14. She had a younger brother, Reuben, and between the two of them and a mother working doubles, they had half raised themselves in the shadow of a man who was breathing and gone. I never became a physical therapist to fix legs, she told me. Legs are easy. I became one because I watched a man I loved choose the chair, and I decided I would spend my life standing in the door of that chair so that other people would have to get past me to sit down in it. She looked at me then, right at me. "You have been trying to sit down in that chair since the day I got here, Declan. I am the thing in your way. Get used to it." I did not have anything to say to that. I lay there with her old dog on my feet and understood that I had been seen all the way down to the bottom, and that instead of feeling exposed, I felt, for the first time since the county road, like maybe I was not alone at the bottom. That was the fall I stopped wanting her to leave and started dreading the day the 3 months would be up. I did not have a word for it yet. I told myself it was gratitude, and then I told myself it was just what happens when you are alone with someone through the worst thing that ever hit you. But I started shaving in the mornings. I started caring what the front room looked like. When she went down to the harbor town for supplies, I found myself watching the road for her little truck, and when I heard the tires on the gravel, something in my chest that had been clenched for a year would let go all at once. I was careful never to let her see it. She was the professional and I was the patient, and I knew where that line was, and I had decided I would rather keep her near me inside that line forever than say a word and risk making it strange enough that she would go. By November, I was walking. Not well and not without a cane, and not without a limp that I will carry to my grave, but walking across the room and then down the porch steps, and then, on a hard, bright day that I will never forget, all the way to the mailbox at the end of the gravel and back, with Marisol pacing me the whole way, saying nothing, letting me do it, ready if I fell and betting quietly that I would not. When I made it back to the porch, I was shaking and soaked through, and I laughed, an actual laugh, the first one in a year, and she laughed with me. And for 1 second her hand was on my arm and neither of us was thinking about her being paid to put it there. And that was the week her brother came to help me build the ramp and said the thing that stopped my heart. Ruben was younger than Marisol, easy where she was intense, a carpenter by trade, and he came up on a Saturday to help me put a proper ramp on the front porch so I could stop fighting the steps on the bad days. He was good company and good with his hands, and the three of us spent the whole gray day at it. Marisol carrying boards she absolutely did not need help carrying, me doing what I could from a stool with a drill, Ruben keeping up an easy stream of talk. It was, I realized somewhere in the middle of it, the happiest day I had spent since before the fall. It felt like something I had stopped believing I would ever have again. It felt like a family working on a house. Late in the afternoon, Marisol went inside to start supper, and Ruben and I stayed out finishing the rail, and he got quiet for a minute, and then he said it, not unkindly, just as a plain observation from a man who loved his sister. He said, "You look at her like she's already yours." And I froze. Drill in my hand, screw half set. I froze the way I used to freeze up high when a gust hit wrong, and everything depended on not moving until it passed. Because he had said out loud the thing I had not let myself say, even alone in the dark. He had looked at one day of me and seen straight through to the center of it. I did not deny it. I could not, with a screw half driven and my face doing whatever it was doing. I just said quiet, "She is my physical therapist, Ruben." Like that was an answer. Like that was a wall and not a line drawn in chalk. Ruben nodded slow and he did not push, but before he picked his drill back up, he said one more thing. He said, "My sister has spent her whole life standing in the doorway, so nobody she loves sits down in that chair." He said, "You might be the first one who ever made her wonder what it would be like to come sit down next to somebody instead." Then he went back to the rail like he had not just rearranged the inside of my chest, and I sat there on that stool with my heart going like I was 150 feet up with a gust coming, and I did not know it yet. But that sentence was the thing I would hold onto through everything that came next. Because the winter after that ramp was the hardest stretch of the whole recovery, and there was a run of it where I very nearly sat down in the chair for good. By December, the walking had come as far back as it was ever going to come. My legs settled into the limp I still carry and would not give me an inch past it. The therapy that had filled every morning was almost done, and I could feel the calendar running out on Marisol's 3 months. That was when the old verdict came back for me. Never climb again. I sat at my own kitchen table one night with the practice spar a black shape in the window and the ridge gone dark behind it, and I felt the chair, Marisol's chair, the one her father had sat down in, and I felt how badly I wanted to sit down in it and never get up. I said out loud to no one, "What is even the point now? I can walk to the mailbox. I am never going 150 feet into a fur again." And for one dark minute, I understood the pull that had taken her father down, even though I hated it. Marisol was in the doorway. She had heard all of it, and she did not comfort me, and she did not argue with me. She crossed the room and pulled out the chair across from mine and sat down in it close, and she said, "All right. So a doctor you saw for 4 minutes in a hallway told you what you are, and you have decided to take his word over mine." She looked at me. Here is the part you have backwards. Nobody is asking you to go 150 feet into a fur. I am asking you to get up that practice spar in the yard on your own 2 feet, 15 feet, 10, whatever that leg will give me, because the height was never the point. The getting up is the point. I am not going to spend my whole life standing in doorways, just to watch you be the one who finally sits down while I am looking right at you. I did not know a person could hand you your spine back across a kitchen table. She did. The money side of it sorted itself out that same winter, and far more quietly than I had braced for. My old outfit's insurer looked at the frayed line and the surgeon's notes, and had no appetite for a fight over a piece of gear that plainly should have been pulled from service. And a claims adjuster drove out to the cabin one gray afternoon and sat at that same kitchen table and settled it fair. The surgeries and the lost wages, and enough on top to keep me in the house. I had a careful attorney out of the harbor town named Frances Ortega read every page before I signed, and she told me it was clean and honest and to take it, and I took it, and I never had to stand up in any hearing room and prove to a stranger that I was worth covering. It was a relief to have it done. But the settlement did not fix me. It only meant I would get to keep the house I was going to do the fixing in. 2 things happened that spring, and I am going to tell you both, because they happened close together and I have never been able to separate them. The first is that Marisol's contract ended. The 3 months had long since stretched to 5, and the money the crew had raised was gone, and there was no more professional reason for her to be sleeping in my back room. We both knew the date was coming, and neither of us had said a word about it. And when it arrived, we were both careful and strange all day, 2 people stepping around a thing in the middle of the floor. That evening she told me, in her plain way, that as of that day she was no longer my physical therapist. That she had already called a clinic in the harbor town and handed off my file to a colleague there for the last of the rehab, so that it would be done right and done clean. She said it looking at her hands, and then she looked up and she said, "I did that on purpose, Declan, because I have not been able to think about you like a patient for a long time now, and I would not let myself say so while I was being paid to put my hands on you." She said, "So I am not being paid anymore, and I am still standing in your kitchen." I thought about Reuben on the ramp and the sentence I had held onto all winter, and I did the bravest thing I have ever done, braver than any tree. I crossed my own kitchen without the cane, which I could just barely do, so that I would be standing on my own when I reached her. And I told her that her brother had said, back in the fall, that I looked at her like she was already mine, and that I had frozen because it was true and I had no right to it, and that I did not have any more right to it now, except that I was not going to spend the rest of my life in a doorway either. And I kissed her in the front room, with the ridge going purple in the window and the old dog thumping his tail against the floor. And it was the first thing since the fall that I did entirely without being afraid. The second thing happened a week or so later, on an ordinary bright morning, and it is the reason for the tin box. I woke before Marisol for once, and I lay there and I thought about the practice spar standing in the yard, and I understood that all winter I had been waiting for some sign that I was allowed to go near my old life again, a doctor's blessing or a one argument or somebody's permission, and that no such sign was ever going to come to the door. The only permission I was ever going to get was the kind you give yourself, and I had finally decided to give it. And that morning, I asked Marisol to get the green tin box down off the top shelf in the closet by the door. She did not ask me why. She got it down and she set it on the kitchen table and she stepped back, because she understood, the way she understood everything, that this was mine to do. I opened it. There they were, my spurs. The gaff still keen, the leather shanks still worn to the exact shape of legs that did not have a rod and screws in them the last time these had been strapped on. For a year I had not been able to look at them, because they were the shape of a dead man. And I looked at them now, and they were just my spurs. They were not the man. I had made the mistake, that whole ruined year, of thinking I was the climbing, that if I could not go 150 feet into a fur, then there was no me left. And it was not true. The me was the thing that got up. The climbing had only ever been one place I put it. I took them out onto the porch, past the ramp that Reuben and I had built, out to the practice spar that stood in the yard, a limbed pole maybe 30 feet of standing dead fir that I had rigged years ago to train green climbers. And with Marisol standing at the base with her arms crossed and her face doing the thing she never let it do in front of patients, I sat on the bottom of the ramp and I strapped my spurs back on. My hands remembered every buckle. And I stood up, and I set a gaff into that pole and I climbed. Not 150 feet. Maybe 15. It was ugly and it was slow, and my bad legs screamed at every set. And I had to think about a thing my body used to do without a thought. But I climbed that pole on my own 2 legs and my own 2 spurs, 15 feet off the ground where I had sworn I would never be again. And I hung there in the low, cold air of the peninsula with the fog in the draws below me, and I was not afraid. Marisol did not clap. She would not, that was not her. She just called up in her plain, flat, merciless, wonderful voice, "That is a good number. I want a harder number tomorrow." And I laughed so hard up on that pole, I nearly had to come down. We married the next summer, in the yard near the spar. Sela stood up for me. Reuben walked his sister out to me across the same gravel. Her mud-splattered truck had come up 2 Octobers before, and the old dog wore a bow he tolerated with great dignity, and Frances Ortega cried, which she swore she never does. I do not climb high work for a company anymore. My leg would not stand a full day of it, and I am not fool enough to try. But I run a small crew of my own now, careful work, hazard trees and cabling, and taking down the dangerous old giants that threaten people's homes. And mostly I stay on the ground and I run the rigging and I teach the young ones how to inspect a line, the real inspection, the slow, careful one nobody makes time for until a man they know hits the ground. Marisol works at the clinic in the harbor town, standing in doorways for other people the way she stood in mine. Some evenings she comes home tired from it, and she sits down next to me on our porch, next to somebody, the way her brother once wondered if she ever would, and we watch the ridge go purple, and neither of us is afraid. I have thought a long time about what it was that I had backwards, and I think it comes down to the difference between what a man does and what a man is worth. I built my whole young life on the belief that my worth was in the high work, in being the one who was not afraid, in being useful and strong and needing nothing from anybody. An afraid line and 40 feet of air proved that belief was a lie in about 1 second. The worth was never in the climbing. The worth was not even in the getting back up the pole, though I am glad I did it. The worth was in the getting up at all, over and over, on a ruined winter morning when I had already decided I was finished, because a woman who had watched her own father choose the chair refused to let me choose it too. Being broken is not the shameful thing. I know that now. The shameful thing would have been to let being broken become an excuse to quit while I was still, in every way that counted, alive. Marisol saw me at the very bottom of myself, dependent and bitter and cruel, unable to open a jar or cross a room, and she did not look away, and she did not go soft, and she did not leave. She stood in the door of my worst self until I got up and walked past her into the rest of my life. And when her brother said I looked at her like she was already mine, he was wrong about only one thing. It was not that she was already mine. It was that I was already hers from the first 6 in the morning, and it took me falling all the way down to the ground to finally look up and see the person who had been standing over me the whole time, holding out a hand, waiting for me to decide I was worth the reach. Would you have let someone see you at your most broken,